I wanted to make sure I did in this conversation is not interrupt you, because it's very frustrating for me when I'm hearing people talk in these what should be long form conversations about very important and nuanced things. And I think one of the things that happens is people are very concerned with letting you say things that is going to get them in trouble or get their channel in trouble. Like there's people that are doing a lot of self-censoring. And I think they're doing that also when they have these conversations with you because they want to establish right away that they have problems with you. And they have problems with some of the positions that a lot of people have problems with. I was one of those people. So when I had heard of you in the past, before I had read your book and before I'd met you, I had no information on you. But there was this narrative. And this narrative was you were anti-vax and you believed in pseudoscience and you were kind of loony. I didn't look into it at all. I just took it at face value because that's what everybody had said. And in my mind, vaccines have been one of the most important medical advancements in human history, saved countless lives, protected children. And I thought very strongly that they were important. I didn't have any information on that either. This is also just a narrative that I've adopted from cursory reading of news articles and, not really getting into the subject at all. Then the pandemic happens. And I had quite a few very reasonable, liberal people, rational people that I trusted their mind, recommend The Real Anthony Fauci, your book. And I'm like, Robert Kennedy wrote a book about Anthony Fauci? Like, what is this going to be about? Like, this is my initial reaction. You've got this, what I perceive to be a kind of fringy thinking, almost conspiracy theorist type person that's not based in fact what their argument was. And he had written a book on Anthony Fauci. And this was right around the time where I was, I was very concerned with the way things were going, that people were just blindly trusting that there was only one way out of this. That was kind of bothering me, particularly when I had known that so many people had gotten the virus and been fine. So I'm like, well, what's the reality of this? So then I read the book. And I've talked about it multiple times on the podcast, but if what you were saying in that book was not true, I do not understand how you are not being sued. You would immediately be sued.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Gang, what's up? Aaron right here, Kennedy and Looney. So this is one of those very delicate subjects that you cannot really talk about. So we're just going to show you. This is very confusing. What in the hell is going on? We've got this old man that we kind of trust. We've got another old man they always told us was a lunatic. It's hard to figure out. Or is it? Let's take a peek. Make up your own minds. But this is going on in the world. In the United States, like, that affects us. What in the hell is going on? Let's take a peek.
Of all of the human phenomena that I've studied in my life, which is the one that has surprised me the most about human nature, the inability of people to change their minds despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
Hi, it's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. here, your HHS secretary. At HHS, we have a division called the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA. BARDA drives some of our most advanced scientific research. It funds developments of vaccines, drugs, diagnostics, and other tools to fight emerging diseases and national health threats. Over the past few weeks, BARDA reviewed 22 mRNA vaccine development investments and began canceling them. Let me explain why. Most of these shots are for flu or COVID, but as the pandemic showed us, mRNA vaccines don't perform well against viruses that infect the upper respiratory tract. Here's the problem. mRNA only codes for a small part of the viral proteins, usually a single antigen. One mutation and the vaccine becomes ineffective. This dynamic drives a phenomenon called antigenic shift, meaning that the vaccine paradoxically encourages new mutations and can actually prolong pandemics as the virus constantly mutates to escape the protective effects of the vaccine. Millions of people, maybe even you or someone you know, caught the Omicron variant despite being vaccinated. That's because a single mutation can make mRNA vaccines ineffective. The same risk applies to flu. After reviewing the science and consulting top experts at NIH and FDA, HHS has determined that mRNA technology poses more risk than benefits for these respiratory viruses. That's why, after extensive review, BARDA has begun the process of terminating these 22 contracts totaling just under $500 million. To replace the troubled mRNA programs, we're prioritizing the development of safer, broader vaccine strategies, like whole virus vaccines and novel platforms that don't collapse when viruses mutate. Let me be absolutely clear. HHS supports safe, effective vaccines for every American who wants them. That's why we're moving beyond the limitations of mRNA for respiratory viruses and investing in better solutions. Thank you.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Thanks very much for joining me. Dangerously, President Trump and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy are wreaking havoc on our already broken and dysfunctional healthcare system. I love the slogan. It's a great slogan. Make America healthy again. Fantastic. Unfortunately, the Trump administration is doing just the opposite. You don't make America healthy by throwing 15 million people off the healthcare they have, which is what Trump's big, beautiful bill does. You don't make America healthy by, as a result of these Medicaid cuts, shutting down or creating a decline in services for hundreds of nursing homes, community health centers, and hospitals throughout the country. But it gets even worse than that. Secretary Kennedy has just fired the head of the CDC, Dr. Susan Monterez, who has been on the job for just a few weeks. Her crime? Well, she refused to be a rubber stamp for Kennedy's anti-vaccine conspiracy theories. That is her crime. That's why she was fired. In other words, she believes what virtually the entire medical and scientific community believe, and that is that vaccines are an enormously important public health tool which protect the health and welfare of our children and all Americans. It is a bit absurd to have to say this in the year 2025. But let me say it. Vaccines are safe and effective. Let me say it again. Vaccines are safe and effective. That, of course, is not just my view. Far more importantly, it is the overwhelming consensus of the medical and scientific communities. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the largest professional association of pediatricians in our country, representing over 67,000 doctors who treat our kids every day. They called immunizations, quote, one of the greatest public health achievements, preventing tens of thousands of deaths and millions of cases of disease, end quote. That's the pediatricians. The American Medical Association, the largest professional association of physicians and medical students in our country, representing over 270,000 doctors, along with 79 leading medical societies, recently said that vaccines for flu, RSV, and COVID-19 are, quote, the best tools to protect the public against these illnesses and their potentially serious complications, end quote. The World Health Organization, an agency comprised of some of the most prominent medical experts around the globe, representing 194 countries, found that over the past 50 years, vaccines have saved 154 million lives and reduced the infant mortality rate by 40%. Unfortunately, Mr. Kennedy, the head of U.S. government public health agencies doesn't agree with the leading doctors and scientists in our country and around the world. He believes that, quote, autism does come from vaccines, end quote, despite more than a dozen rigorous scientific studies involving hundreds of thousands of children that have found no, quote, no causal association, end quote, to link vaccines to autism. He has called the COVID-19 vaccine, quote, the deadliest vaccines ever made, end quote, despite findings from the WHO that these vaccines saved 20 million lives throughout the world during the pandemic. He has claimed that the polio vaccines killed more people than polio ever did, despite the fact that the scientific community has found that the polio vaccine have saved 1.5 million lives and prevented over 20 million people from becoming paralyzed since 1988. He has absurdly claimed that, quote, there is no vaccine that is safe and effective, end quote. That is the head of the Health and Human Services Agency. So, what does this mean for the health of the American people? Short term, it will mean, unless we change this situation, that for millions of Americans, it will be harder to get life-saving vaccines. Already, the Trump administration has effectively taken away COVID vaccines from healthy adults and kids unless they fight their way through our broken healthcare system. It will also mean higher out-of-pocket costs if people are able to get the vaccine at all. And the long-term implications are even more dangerous. As the former chairman of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, I will never forget holding a hearing 2 years ago with the major government officials responsible for protecting us from a new pandemic, including the head of the CDC. Without exception, every one of these agency heads said that while they could not predict the exact date, there will be a future pandemic, and we must be much better prepared for it than we are today. Unfortunately, despite that reality, Secretary Kennedy's actions are making a dangerous situation even worse by defunding the research that could help us prepare for the next pandemic. In August, he canceled nearly $500 million in research for the kinds of vaccines that helped us stop the COVID pandemic. Secretary Kennedy is endangering the health of the American people, now and into the future. Secretary Kennedy must resign. In his place, President Trump must listen to our doctors and scientists and nominate a Secretary of Health and Human Services and a CDC director who will protect the health and well-being of the American people, not implement dangerous conspiracy theories. Thanks very much.
As a European, I am a European,
European.
actually.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh.
Irish citizen. Yeah. So
Oh,
there you
welcome,
go.
welcome.
Speaking as a European.
WTF.
How many kids did you molest with Jeffrey Epstein?
More than just elbows.
And as the most European of the non-European countries.
Being aware of what potential conflicts of interest you sought to avoid.
What possible conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance. Come on, Fiona.
These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations, you're spending more money on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
All right, gang, thank you all very much for watching. Aaron, Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe. Smash that subscribe. We're trying to grow this thing. Canadian Federal Politics. Get yours right here. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next video.